The GPS glitch that led to a forbidden zone. Welcome to Sleepy Echoes Unwind, where the night remembers old stories. Light your lanterns, slow your breathing, and let us drift together into the hush of the night. Think about how much trust you place in that little device in your pocket. That calm, synthesized voice has become our invisible guide through life, navigating us through strange cities and promising the quickest route home. We follow it almost without question. But that blind trust has a dark side. Park rangers and search and rescue teams even have a name for it: death by GPS. It's a grimly casual term for the surprisingly common phenomenon of people being led straight into disaster by their navigation systems. And these aren't just small mistakes. We're talking about drivers who, paying more attention to a screen than the world outside, have driven into lakes, off cliffs, or onto active train tracks. In 2022, a North Carolina man named Philip Paxson died after his GPS guided him onto a bridge that had been washed out nearly a decade earlier. In another case, a couple from British Columbia, Albert and Rita Chrétien, got stranded in the Nevada wilderness for 49 days after their GPS routed them onto an impassable logging road. Rita barely survived on trail mix and snowmelt. Albert, who walked for help, never returned. Most of these tragedies come down to outdated maps or a simple failure to question the machine when it tells you to do something that seems wrong. But sometimes, a story emerges that feels different. It isn't about an old map or a simple glitch. It's a story that feels like a modern legend, a piece of internet folklore that blurs the line between a technical error and something far more sinister. The story I'm about to tell you is one of those. It's the account of 4 friends who, according to the lone survivor, followed a bizarre GPS error into a place that wasn't on any map and realized, too late, that their detour wasn't an accident. It was an invitation. For the first 800 miles, the road trip was perfect. Bad gas station coffee, worse sing-alongs, and that endless American highway. In the sturdy SUV were Liam, the driver, his girlfriend Chloe, the meticulous planner, her free-spirited younger sister Maya with her Polaroid camera, and Noah, Liam's quiet, observant best friend. They were heading west, escaping a Michigan spring for the promise of California sunshine. Their guide was the calm voice from Liam's phone mounted on the dash. For 2 days, it was their reliable 5th passenger. But as dusk settled over the deep woods of Northern California, the voice spoke up. A new route, a shortcut, it promised, that would save them an hour. The turn was onto a gravel road, unmarked and swallowed by the shadows of giant redwoods. On the screen, a thin blue line cut straight through a vast, unlabeled patch of green. Chloe looked down at her paper map. She saw nothing. No road, no trail, nothing. Noah, leaning forward from the back seat, was the one who said it. "This is how horror movies start." They all laughed. They had no idea how right he was. Section 1. The road trip and the detour. The decision to take the turn wasn't instant. It just kind of hung there in the air. Liam, ever the pragmatist, was tempted. An hour's an hour, he shrugged. We could be at the coast by sunrise. But Chloe, the group's navigator, who had triple-checked every hotel and printed paper maps just in case, was skeptical. This wasn't part of the plan. "It's not on my map, Liam," she said, her finger tracing the blank spot on the page. "There's just state forest for 100 miles. GPS updates in real time," Liam countered. "It's probably a new service road the paper map doesn't have. Come on, where's your sense of adventure?" From the back, Maya chimed in, full of youthful confidence. "Let's do it! An adventure! It'll be a story to tell." She was already imagining the moody photos she could take as the last light bled through the trees. Noah stayed quiet, his eyes locked on the GPS screen. The blue line it showed was unnervingly straight, cutting across the green landscape with a geometric precision that just felt wrong. It didn't curve with the land, it simply sliced through it. The final push came from the device itself. The calm voice spoke again, its tone unchanged. In 200 feet, turn right. The simple, confident instruction seemed to settle it. With a grin that was half joking, half daring, Liam flicked on his turn signal. The rhythmic click, click, click sounded way too loud in the car. "All right, adventure it is," he announced, turning the wheel. The tires crunched onto the gravel, a sound that marked their departure from the known world. The moment they left the pavement, the air seemed to still. The temperature dropped, and the redwoods closed in around them like pillars of some ancient, forgotten cathedral. For the first few miles, they were having fun. They joked about the GPS leading them to a secret Bigfoot colony or a hidden government base. Maya snapped photos, the flash of her Polaroid camera lighting up the colossal trees and the dust swirling behind them. Liam focused on the road, but Chloe watched the phone. The little blue dot of their car moved steadily along that unnatural line. The map around them was still a featureless green void. No side roads, no landmarks, not even a contour line. "Still nothing," she murmured, her earlier unease creeping back in. "It's like we're driving through a blank spot on the map." Noah, who'd been staring out the window, spoke for the first time in minutes. His voice was low. "Has anyone noticed we haven't had a cell signal since we turned?" He was right. Chloe checked her phone. No service. Liam glanced at his. Same thing. The car's GPS was now their only link to the outside world, and it was leading them deeper into a place that, by every other measure, shouldn't exist. The road itself was getting worse. The packed gravel gave way to loose dirt and mud. The path grew narrower, the trees pressing in so close that branches scraped against the windows like fingernails on a chalkboard. Section 2. The Unraveling Road. The sense of adventure had officially died. It was replaced by a thick, anxious silence as the gravel road degraded into a rutted dirt track. The SUV groaned and lurched, and the constant scrape of branches against the car was a grating soundtrack to their growing dread. It was Maya who saw it first. "Hey, stop," she said, her voice sharp. Liam hit the brakes, the SUV sliding a bit in the mud. She was pointing into the woods. About 20 yards in, half hidden by ferns, was a sign. It was old and weathered, with letters carved by hand. The paint was nearly gone, but they could just make out the words. "Private property. Trespassers will be..." The last word was rotted away. "Okay, that's officially creepy," Chloe whispered. "Liam, we should turn back." "Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing," Liam said, his jaw tight. He shifted the car into reverse, but as he started backing up, the GPS pinged. A new message flashed on the screen in a bold, red font. "Round blocked. Rerouting." The calm female voice followed. "Recalculating. Proceed straight for 6 miles." "What do you mean, route blocked?" Liam muttered, staring at the screen. The road behind them was empty. "This thing's busted." He ignored it and kept reversing. After another 50 feet, the SUV lurched violently. A sickening crunch echoed from underneath. He'd backed onto a large, half-buried rock. He threw the car into drive, but the wheels just whined and spun in the mud. They were stuck. The only sound was the idling engine. Miles down an unmarked road, no cell signal, and a disabled car. The joke about the horror movie wasn't funny anymore. "Okay," Liam said, forcing a calm he definitely didn't feel. "Let's not panic. Noah and I will check out the damage. Chloe, Maya, stay in the car, lock the doors." The moment they stepped outside, The silence of the forest felt crushing. No birds, no insects, just the thick, damp smell of decay. Using their phone flashlights, they crouched down to look under the car. It was bad. The rock had torn a hole in the oil pan. Dark fluid was dripping steadily onto the ground. The car wasn't going anywhere. It was then that Noah's flashlight beam caught a glint of something in the woods, just past that creepy sign. "Liam, check this out!" They pushed through the damp ferns and stopped dead. Parked among the trees was another car, an old sedan covered in moss and grime. The driver's side door was slightly ajar. A cold knot formed in Liam's stomach. He pushed the door open. The glove compartment was empty, papers were strewn about, and an old brick-style cell phone lay on the floor. But on the driver's seat, placed neatly in the center, was a portable GPS unit with a cracked screen. "This is so weird," Noah breathed. "Why just abandon a car out here?" "Maybe they got stuck, like us," Liam said, though it felt like a weak explanation. He leaned in closer, and that's when he saw it. Scrawled in the dust on the dashboard was a single, faint word. "Run." A sudden, high-pitched beep from their own SUV made them both jump. They scrambled back. On the GPS screen, the previous message was gone. In its place was a new one. A single word in that same stark red font. "Wrong." Chloe and Maya were huddled in the front seat, their faces pale. "It just appeared," Chloe stammered. "It made a noise, and that word was just there." The four of them stood beside their dead vehicle, staring at the glowing screen. The line between a tech glitch and something actively hostile had just been crossed. The GPS hadn't just gotten them lost. It felt like it was mocking them. The abandoned car, the dusty warning, it was all starting to feel like a terrifying pattern. They weren't just lost. They were somewhere they weren't supposed to be. And something, or someone, knew they were there. Section 3. The Point of No Return. The word "wrong" glowed on the screen. A digital accusation. The eerie woods now felt menacing. Every shadow seemed to move. Every rustle of wind sounded like a whisper. They were stranded, isolated, and being taunted by the very thing that led them here. "We have to walk back," Maya said, her voice trembling. "Walk where?" Chloe shot back, her practical side fighting a tidal wave of fear. "It's miles to the highway, it's almost dark, and we have no idea what's out there." "Staying here can't be the better option," Noah argued, his eyes scanning the impenetrable wall of trees. He was right. That abandoned car felt like a ghost, a warning of what happens to people who stay put. Liam tried to take charge. "Okay, Noah's right. We can't stay. We grab the water, first aid kit, flashlights. We stick to the road, we move together, and we walk back. It's a straight path. We can't get lost." As they frantically pulled supplies from the SUV, the GPS beeped again. They all froze. The word "wrong" was gone. The screen now showed what looked like a satellite view of their location, rendered in a chilling night vision green. Their car was a bright white dot, and surrounding it, blinking slowly, were 4 other white dots, arranged in a loose perimeter. What is that?" Maya whispered. Noah, who knew a little about programming, leaned in. "It looks like a tracking display. And those other dots, they're moving." He was right. As they watched in horror, one of the dots to the north began to move, slowly, deliberately, toward them. This wasn't a glitch, it was an advance. The horrifying truth hit them like a physical blow. The GPS wasn't just a map. It had been turned into a beacon. It hadn't just led them here. It had announced their arrival. And the other dots? They were the hunters. This was a sophisticated, technologically driven trap. They were the bait.
Smash it!
Chloe suddenly screamed, her voice raw with terror.
Liam, smash it now!
Liam didn't hesitate. He grabbed the tire iron from the trunk. With a guttural yell, he brought the heavy metal down on the phone. The screen shattered. He tore the device from its mount, threw it to the ground, and slammed the tire iron down again and again, pulverizing the beacon that had betrayed them. He stood panting in the sudden silence, the tire iron hanging from his hand. For a moment, there was nothing but their own ragged breathing. Then, a sound cut through the night from deep in the woods to the north, the direction of the moving dot. A long, low horn, like a hunting horn, its mournful note echoing through the trees. It wasn't a sound of rescue. It was the sound of a game beginning. There was no more discussion. There was only instinct.
Go!
Liam yelled, grabbing the bag of supplies. They abandoned the car and plunged into the forest, running away from the road, away from the horn. They ran blindly, crashing through undergrowth, stumbling over roots, driven by pure terror. They had crossed the point of no return. They weren't lost travelers anymore. They were prey. The vast, empty space on the map finally had a name. It was a hunting ground. Section 4. The Hunt. The forest was a maze of black trunks and thorny branches. They ran, fueled by an adrenaline so potent it numbed the sting of branches whipping their faces. The beam from their one good flashlight, held in Liam's shaking hand, cut a frantic path through the darkness. Every sound was terrifying. A snapping twig was a gunshot. The rustle of leaves was a footstep. After what felt like an eternity, Chloe stumbled and fell.
I can't,
she wheezed.
I can't run anymore.
They collapsed behind a massive fallen log, and in that pause, they heard the horn again. Closer, to their left. It was answered almost immediately by another horn. To their right, they were being flanked, driven like animals. Noah put a finger to his lips, his eyes wide. He pointed into the darkness. At first, Liam saw nothing. Then he caught it. A flicker of light high in the trees. A tiny pinpoint of red light, like a laser sight, sweeping through the canopy. Then another appeared, and another. They had night vision. They owned the darkness. Hiding was impossible. They weren't just being chased, they were being toyed with. A twig snapped nearby, dangerously close. Liam clicked off the flashlight, plunging them into absolute blackness. They held their breath, hearts hammering. Slow, rhythmic footsteps crunched through the leaves, growing closer, then stopping no more than 30 feet away. A low chuckle drifted through the trees. Then, a voice, calm and amplified, echoed through the clearing. "We know you're there. The pinger in your vehicle gave us your initial location. The secondary tracker you're carrying is making the rest of this very, very easy." Secondary tracker. Cold dread washed over Liam. As he'd frantically packed, he'd grabbed the car's small red emergency kit. At that exact moment, he heard a faint, rhythmic beeping coming from the bag at his feet. They had brought another beacon with them. Smashing the phone had done nothing. The game was rigged.
Runners!
The amplified voice called out, chillingly cheerful.
The 10-minute head start is up.
Suddenly, a floodlight ignited high in the trees, bathing their hiding spot in blinding white light. They were exposed. For a split second, Liam saw a figure at the edge of the light, a tall silhouette in dark gear holding a long rifle.
"Split up!"
Liam screamed, shoving the beeping bag away. He grabbed Chloe's hand, pulling her one way as Noah shoved Maya in the other. "Go, now!" The world exploded into chaos. The crack of a rifle split the air, a bullet thudding into the log behind them. Another whizzed past Liam's ear. They scrambled in opposite directions. Behind them, they heard Maya scream, a sound that was cut off abruptly. They heard Noah shout her name in a voice filled with rage, followed by the sounds of a violent struggle. But they couldn't stop. To turn back was to die. They could only run, the screams of their friends echoing in their minds as the hunt descended into a brutal, violent end. Section 5. Aftermath and Escape. The rest of the night was a blur of terror. Liam and Chloe ran until their lungs burned and their legs gave out. The sounds of the hunt faded behind them. They finally collapsed at the base of a rocky outcrop, huddling together in the cold until the first gray light of dawn filtered through the trees. They were alive, but they were alone. Maya and Noah were gone. Driven by a sliver of hope, they started walking east toward where the highway should be. They walked for hours through an endless, repeating forest. Late in the afternoon, they stumbled onto a faint, overgrown path, an old logging road. They followed it for another hour until the trees began to thin. Through the leaves, they saw a glint of metal. It was a tall, chain-link fence topped with barbed wire, and on it, at regular intervals, were new-looking signs. Not weathered wood, but stark white metal. U.S. government property, restricted area, no trespassing, lethal force authorized. They stared at the signs. It made no sense. This didn't feel like a government base. It felt like a private kingdom. The signs seemed like a lie, a convenient wall to hide whatever was inside. They followed the fence line until they found a chained gate next to an empty security shack. On the other side was a paved road, a real road. They were found 2 hours later by a sheriff's deputy, two hysterical figures stumbling down the middle of a remote county road. Their story was met with disbelief. Liam and Chloe told the police everything. Search teams were sent out. They found Liam's disabled SUV, just as he'd described. They found the shattered remains of his phone on the ground. But that's where the evidence and the story ended. There was no abandoned sedan, no hand-carved signs, no footprints other than their own, and no trace of Maya or Noah. They had simply vanished. The land was searched from the air. It was a vast, undeveloped tract of wilderness, privately owned by a powerful, reclusive corporation. The official report concluded that the four friends got lost, their car broke down, and Maya and Noah tragically wandered off and succumbed to the elements. Case closed. Liam and Chloe's story of a human hunting ground was dismissed as a shared delusion, a story concocted by two minds broken by trauma. The GPS that acted as bait, the secret cabal of hunters. It was the stuff of fiction, not a credible report. CTA. The official story is that two young people are still missing in the wilds of Northern California. But for the survivors of these kinds of stories, both real and legendary, the truth feels far more terrifying. The tale of Liam and his friends has become a piece of modern folklore, an urban legend for the digital age, because it taps into a very real fear. So the next time your GPS suggests a tempting shortcut down a dark, unfamiliar road, it's worth asking yourself, is it really saving you time? Or is it leading you somewhere you were never meant to go? If you found this story as unsettling as I did, hit that like button and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next exploration of the strange and unexplained. Conclusion. The story of the Forbidden Zone exists in that gray area between a documented tragedy and a wild horror story. While consumer GPS technology isn't known to be vulnerable to the kind of malicious remote hijacking this story describes, The tale is powerful because it feels just plausible enough. What actually happened to the real people lost to death by GPS was a tragic combination of bad luck, bad data, and a moment of misplaced trust. Fictional tales like this one take that reality a step further, asking, what if? What if, in the vast, uncharted corners of the country, there are places deliberately kept off the map where the normal rules don't apply? It's a terrifying thought, and a reminder that sometimes the oldest advice is the best. Don't blindly trust the machine.